Hey guys, it's Ms. Cassidy. Welcome to science class. So we are going to begin our science class with a special topic, which I actually enjoy this topic a lot. It's called properties of matter. Pay attention.
Properties of matter. Show what you know. Everything around you is made of matter. How can you tell one type of matter from another?
So how can we tell one type of matter from another? Well, there are different ways to identify that type of matter. You can value it just by the space that it takes up. You can also value it by its different properties, which is basically what we're going to be seeing in this lesson.
Lessons. Lesson 1. Observe matter. Lesson 2. Model matter. Lesson 3. Properties of matter. Hands-on lab. What's in the box? You can identify objects by using your senses. What clues help you identify an object?
So let's begin by observing matter.
Lesson 1. Observe matter. I can observe and measure properties of materials. Literacy skill. Use evidence from text. Vocabulary. Observe. Measure. Solubility. Academic vocabulary. Describe. Local to global connection. When you buy fruit at the grocery store, how do you know how much to pay? Usually you see a sign that says the fruit costs a certain amount for 1 kilogram or 1 pound. Kilograms and pounds are units that we use to describe how heavy something is. At the grocery store, you might use pounds to say how much something weighs. In science, we describe the weight of something using the unit kilograms. People around the world use the same unit to tell about weight. Different standard units describe the amounts of other properties, such as length and time. Because everyone agrees on the amount that each unit stands for, you always know what the unit means. Using standard units means that someone else, no matter where they live, will be able to know the exact amount you refer to. Explain. Why would it be hard to shop for food if there were no units to use to measure the amount of something?
So think about that for a second, guys. Why would it be hard to shop for food if there were no units to use it to measure the amount of something? Do you imagine going to the grocery store or to the supermarket and trying to buy rice, but you don't have a measure of unit? It's not a bag of rice, it's not a box of rice, it's not a pound of rice. So that would make it pretty hard to buy rice, and that's not just rice, that's many other types of things that you'd like to buy at the grocery store. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part, where we are observing properties. Now here, as you can see, we have one of our vocabulary words, and then we have our academic vocabulary word. Pay attention.
Observing properties. Every kind of material has properties. A property is a characteristic of a material, such as its color and odor. Some materials might have some properties that are the same as the properties of other materials. But no two materials have the exact same set of properties. You can directly observe many of the properties of a material. When you observe something, you use your senses to gather information about it. For example, you use your eyes to observe the color and shape of the materials in the building in the photo. You use your ears to observe that a guitar string makes a specific sound. You observe the hardness and texture of a rock using your sense of touch. In the kitchen, you can observe the properties of foods by tasting or smelling them. When you observe something, you can use the information you gather to describe what you observed. When you describe something, you tell about its properties. Apply. Each material in the building has a unique set of properties. Circle the material that has these properties: white, hard, smooth, and in the shape of a rectangle. Download to complete the activity.
So as you guys can
You
see,
be a scientist. Identify properties. Gather several coins, including at least 2 that are different kinds.
Okay, so as you guys can see, sorry, that was a little glitch there. As you can see, there are 2 different things when it comes to observing and describing. When we observe something, we can tell it by the color, the shape of it. We also use our 5 senses in all of them to be able to observe something, to understand it better. And you know, when you describe something, you tell it by its properties. So if you take a look at this image, you have to find in this image something or circle something that's white, hard, smooth, and at the same time in the shape of a rectangle. Measuring properties. Now, I want everyone to pay attention, and we're actually going to do something like this similar in class because I have my own balance where we're going to be able to weigh stuff, so pay attention.
Measuring properties. You observe some properties by using scientific tools. One way to use tools is to measure. When you measure a property, you compare it to a standard unit or value for that property. Each unit of measurement is recognized all over the world. For example, you might measure the length of an object using a meter stick. The unit of measurement for length is 1 meter. If the object is 3 meters long, then the measured length of the object is 3 times the length of 1 meter. The meter is the exact same length around the world. When you measure the weight of an object, you use a balance or a scale. The balance compares the weight of the object to standard weights, such as the gram masses shown in the right pan in the photograph. Each gram mass is marked with a specific amount of grams or kilograms. Another measurement is how much space a material takes up. This property is measured in liters and milliliters.
So as you can see, measuring properties, measure is one of our vocabulary words, can be done in different ways. You can measure distance, you can measure length, you can measure weight, volume, density. There are so many different things that we can measure, you guys. And that way we figure out the properties of something. Now this one I want to get to. Can you tell them apart? In your textbook, you can see on page 10 and 11 that you need to tell apart these 2 different items based on their properties. One material is wood and the other is made of steel. So let's say we take a nail. Well, first let's weigh them. How do their masses compare? One weighs 500 grams and the other weighs 7,500 grams. How hard are they? We tried putting a nail into A and this happened, and then we tried putting a nail into B and this happened. Which block is made of wood and which block is made of steel? Shade in the block you think is made of steel. These are the 2 and you have to shade in one. Describe how you can identify the material of the blocks. Based on these 2 different tools that we use, we should be able to describe how we can tell them apart. Conductors of heat and electricity.
Conductors of heat and electricity. You can identify some properties directly by using your senses. Other times, you may need to observe how a material acts with other materials or with energy. If you stir a pot of soup with a metal spoon, the handle of the spoon gets hot. If you stir it with a wooden spoon, the handle does not get hot. A property of the metal is that it moves or conducts heat easily from the soup to your hand. A property of the wood is that it does not easily conduct heat. Just as some materials transfer heat, some materials conduct electricity. When you connect a light to a battery to make it shine, you use wires. The wires are probably made of a metal called copper. One property of copper is that it conducts electricity. If you connect the battery and light with string instead of a copper wire, the light does not turn on. That is because a property of the string is that it does not easily conduct electricity. Infer. Why does the electric cord on a lamp have a layer of plastic around the copper wire?
So why do you guys think that an electric cord on a lamp have a layer of plastic around the copper wire? Why would they have to do that? I'd like you guys to explain that when we're in class. Then we have magnetic materials.
Magnetic materials. Another property of materials is whether they are magnetic or attracted to a magnet. Many people use magnets to hold notes on a refrigerator. Many refrigerator doors are made from magnetic steel. The magnets sticking to the door are also magnetic. If the refrigerator were made from brass, the magnets would not stick to the door. Brass is not magnetic. Reading check. Use evidence from text. If you have a mixture of steel screws and brass screws, you can separate them with a magnet. The magnet will pick up the steel screws but not the brass screws. Highlight the text that explains why the screws can be separated this way.
So here in the text, you guys are going to highlight the part that explains why steel can be separated from brass and why brass does not separate itself from steel. Then we have solubility. If you have ever gone swimming in the ocean, you probably know the seawater tastes salty. You cannot see the salt in the water, though, because salt dissolves in water, but if you put a bit of pepper into a glass of water, the pepper will not dissolve. The pepper does not appear to change at all. The solubilities of these two substances are different. Solubility is a property of material that refers to how well it dissolves in another material, such as water. Salt is soluble in water, pepper is not. Some substances are more soluble than pepper, but less soluble than salt. And we are going to find this out for ourselves, because after we've drawn a conclusion and we've explained, we are going to do our own little experiment, as you guys can see here. You guys are going to need salt, sugar, flour, and a couple of plastic cups and some water, and we are going to investigate on our own why this happens. Now, the last topic for this week is modeling matter. Our I can statement says, explain that matter is made of tiny particles too small to be seen. In our vocabulary, we have atom, atomic theory, compound, molecule, and in our academic vocabulary, we have conclude. It says that salt is a natural resource that people need in their diets. That salt that you use in your kitchen may come from a salt deposit, and in these deposits, the salt is often large, solid mass like a rock. People use tools to break it down into smaller pieces. Even these small chunks are too big to use on your food. Sometimes the salt is crushed small enough to pour from a salt shaker like you see here. Another way to break the salt into smaller pieces is by using a salt grinder. What would happen if you could keep grinding the salt particles? What will happen if you keep breaking it into pieces? Alrighty. And we are also going to discover how we can detect matter without seeing it. The materials you're going to need have been put into your newsletter: balloons, rubber tubing, a cup of water, and a plastic skewer. All right, guys. Well, I can't wait to see the results of our science projects. Well, our science experiments. I also have real great expectations of what will happen during that time. I can't wait to see. I hope you guys are excited as I am. Bye.